Today is day 3 of Bloo Makes Christmas in 24 days, and today we're making Char Sui Pork. Come with me. So one of Tanny's absolute bestest favourite things for Christmas or any time of the year is Char Sui Pork. So we were gifted some pork by some wonderful friends of ours, so I decided to use one of the pieces to make Char Sui Pork. Now I've started off with 2 tablespoons of raw honey. Now, is this recipe the traditional one? No. Is it as close as I can get with the ingredients that I have in my cupboard right now? Yes, it is. Okay, that's what we've got here. Okay, it's as close as I can get it, but I haven't got everything on my shelves right now. The next thing that we are going to add to this is a cup of pre-made hoisin sauce. Do I have any made? No. But I do have this on my shelf, so I'm going to use this, you know, because I'm good. I'm just not always that good. Okay. Next thing we're going to add is 2 tablespoons of sugar. Now, it's best if you use light brown sugar or palm sugar or jaggery if you have it. I don't. All right. I just have used up all my brown sugar. I really need to make some more. So I'm just using what I have. And I don't feel guilty about that at all, because I'm pretty sure there's a lot of Chinese mums out there that are just like, some days they just use what they have and they do what they can with what they've got. Next, we're going to add 2 tablespoons of dark soy sauce. It needs to be the dark one. Okay, guys? It really does. And I'm also adding 2 tablespoons of rice vinegar. Now, traditionally it should be Shaoxing wine. I don't have any. If you have sherry, you can use that instead. I don't have any of that either, but I did have rice vinegar, and it's mostly there to give that kind of relief from all the sweet. Now, I'm also using dried ginger. We don't have any fresh in the house, so I've used a couple of teaspoons of dried ginger, and I'm doing the same with the garlic powder because I don't have fresh garlic in the house. And also, Tanny couldn't eat this if I used fresh garlic because he's allergic to the fumes. So, and I've also used a couple of teaspoons of my homemade 5-spice powder. Now, if you want the recipe for that, check in the description below or in the cards above, because I have a video on making your own 5-spice powder. Now, once we've done this, all we're going to do is mix it up really, really well. You want to make sure there's no lumps, bumps, or anything like that of anything. This is a very, very sweet marinade, and it will also be used as our glaze and basting sauce. All right, so we want to make sure that there's nothing in there that you're going to get a mouthful of, like a globule of dried ginger powder that's just going to open in your mouth and just think, oh God, no, please, just don't do it. So make sure it's properly mixed up. Now, we do have one more thing to add to this, and that is a couple of tablespoons of sesame oil. Yeah, and I did. So next, we're going to work on our piece of pork. Now, mostly you would use a piece of fillet for this, or perhaps some belly pork, but we have this, which is a random sort of shoulder or, you know, butt piece of pork. We're not quite sure what it is. There was no label on it. It was a gift from a friend, and we're just grateful to have it. So you want to make sure that if you use a piece of pork like this, you make sure that the pieces are either somewhere between 1 inch or 2 thick, so you've got really good chunky pieces of meat. So yeah, a good couple of centimeters thick on each piece. And then you want to lie them in your baking dish that you have at the side. And we are then going to pour our marinade that we've just made all over the top of it. Now, you can pop this in the fridge or whatever for the next hour to 3 hours. It's best overnight. I only had a couple of hours, so, you know, it just had from the morning to the afternoon, and it was fine. I've never worried about doing it the night before, to be honest. It's a bit of a faff. And frankly, I can't be bothered doing things in the evening. You know, I'm tired. I want to put my feet up, watch some random stuff, and just veg out. I don't want to be worrying about putting meat in the fridge to marinate tomorrow, you know? So just do it in the morning. It makes more sense. You're fine. Now, once it's done marinating, you want to have a roasting dish with a couple of racks over the top. And place your meat on the racks. Okay? Now, I know some of you are going to go, why would you do that? Now, the reason is that our marinade is incredibly full of sugar. There are huge amounts of sugar in that. And if I leave the meat in the roasting dish as we keep glazing and basting our meat while it cooks, we're leaving it in marinade that will burn to a crisp, okay, and leave a very nasty, acrid, smoky flavor to our meat that is not the nice variety, okay? So you want to make sure that you've glazed your meat to make sure that it's got lots and lots of marinade over the top of it before it goes in the oven. It goes in the oven now for 20 minutes on gas mark 6, which is 180 degrees Celsius or 350 degrees Fahrenheit. And while that's doing, we're going to take care of the marinade and pop it in a pot on the stove because we need to thicken it up. So our marinade has now become our basting sauce, okay? And we are going to thicken it up to about twice as thick as it is. At the moment it's quite thin and it's not very syrupy. If anything, it's marinade-y, okay? So it's pretty wet. What we want to do is turn it into a light syrup consistency. So pretty much we want to bring it to the boil, but we don't want to boil it for too long. We're going to leave it for about 5 minutes and that'll be enough. Please don't leave this on its own. You will come to the boil very quickly and it will burn equally quickly, and you don't want that to happen. So stay on it. It'll only take 5 to 10 minutes, and just make sure that you keep on stirring it so it doesn't stick, doesn't catch on the bottom, doesn't catch on the sides, because you don't want it to do that at all. As we can see here, it's actually thickened up enough. It's about twice as thick as it was, so it's still very liquidy, but it is a light syrup consistency. So not so that you would have to put your finger through it and it'd stay, but enough to give it a bit of ability to stay on your meat when you baste it. Now our meat has now been in the oven for its first 20 minutes and we're going to pull it out and we're going to baste it. Now if you have a turkey baster or something like that, you could use that. I find that a spoon is plenty, and it becomes very generous and you can get as much on as you want, and you can baste the whole thing and it just looks beautiful and it works really, really well. You could use a basting brush or a pastry brush if that's what you wanted, but I usually find that you don't get enough on there if you do that. So I just put on a spoon. Put it on with a spoon. Be generous. Come on. And then once it's all covered again, we're going to pop it back in the oven for another 20 minutes. It's 20 minutes later and here we are again. We're ready for the second basting, and we're going to do exactly as we did the first time. As you can see, some of that glaze is starting to catch on the edges, on the absolute extremities. That's okay. Don't worry about that. It's the sauce that's catching, not the meat. But it does give you an idea of why we don't put the meat down in the roasting dish, as if the sauce is starting to catch already, it's already going to be burnt in the bottom in that tray, and we don't want our meat sitting in that. It's just not going to be nice. So like I said, be generous with it again. Make sure it's fully coated on each piece of meat, and back in the oven. Back in the oven. It's that simple. Go have a brew. You got time for a brew until you got to pull it out and do it again. Yes, of course, you're cooking by the magic of YouTube, and here we are 20 minutes later, ready for our third basting. Now, I'm pretty sure there's a few of you are going to say, but Blue, this isn't red. Char Sui pork is red. Okay, now traditionally Char Sui pork gets its red color from Chinese fermented red tofu. I don't happen to have any. I could go into town and run in and get some, but I'm not going to. The other thing that they do is, because the fermented tofu is a bit of an acquired taste, in European countries and the States, they tend to put red food coloring in it. I'd rather just leave it like this. Honestly, here we are, and it's done. It's beautiful, it's glistening, it's gorgeous. Now let's get cut up. Can I just say that at this point, Tanny is actually standing in the doorway behind me, salivating. He is literally drooling and willing me to hurry up because he is desperate for some of this. While I started cutting this though, I had a bit of a realization. I was looking at the color of the meat and thinking, gee, that's pink. It's pork though, right? Okay, it's definitely pork, but it shouldn't be that pink color. And I turned round to Tanny and I said to him, you know that pork, love? And he goes, yeah. And I said, well, I think it's gammon. Turns out it was gammon. Now, for those of you who don't know what gammon is what's known as green ham, which is unsmoked but brined ham. And that's the name for it here in the UK, and it is far more popular than smoked ham over here. And it's what we use at Christmas. We use a gammon. However, they do tend to be incredibly salty, especially if you just roast them. Now, if I do a gammon for Christmas or what have you, or at any other time, I will boil it first and make a ham stock, and then I'll roast it and do what I did to make this char siu. How was it? Well, Tanny really enjoyed it. In fact, I came out this morning and the bits of the pork that I'd, left cut up on the tray overnight had disappeared this morning. So we know that it was pretty good. So this is the last surviving piece of the char siu I made yesterday. Why is it in our Christmas series? Well, this piece of char siu is going to be cut up into very thin slices and matchsticks and put into spring rolls. Now, if you'd like any of the recipes from this series or any other recipes that I've put out over the last few years, go and check out my blog. The link is in the description below, and all of the recipes will be out by the end of the week. Now, if you are a Patreon, you will receive your own downloadable and printable to keep recipe cards for every recipe that I do in the next 24 days. And the others that I've done as well will also be there for you to download anytime you like. So I will see you again tomorrow, guys. Have an awesome rest of your day. I love you guys heaps. Bye.